Are you back?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah, back in your.
Okay. Very good. Very, very good. All right. So where were we? Lovecraft is a. I don't know where do you get the idea that Lovecraft was a socialist?
Then I read it somewhere online. I think S.C. Joshi mentioned in the podcast, like in his later years, he converted to socialism. I think he also wrote about it in a letter. I think he mentioned it.
Hmm. I do know that he was quite the fan of Mussolini. So if he was a fan of Mussolini, it would be pretty weird for him to go from Italian fascism to socialism.
I don't know. He had an opinion on Mussolini. I remember his letter on Hitler, which people kept using against him, even though he made
Letter
it
on what?
on Hitler.
Hmm.
Yeah, even though he made it clear that he just thought Hitler was a necessary evil against communism. He wasn't really supporting him, but that was again that was like before the Second World War. It's not like he knew what was about to happen.
Yeah. And also, we gotta remember that these kinds of like boogeymen, Hitler back in those times, he was what was he 19? He was a 1936 Time Magazine Man of the Year. You know what I mean? Like
It was,
these kind of like these dictators being evil monsters and literally Satan and stuff. That wasn't in the zeitgeist yet. I mean, they just looked at them as other world leaders at that point. So to like try to roast him on that is just it's just goofy. I would actually uh be more critical of him if he like supported some of the people that are leading the world now. You know what I mean? Like if he was like a Justin Trudeau fan, I might be angry. You know what I mean?
yeah, I'm not a fan of Trudeau either. Yeah, that guy, he's got to be like one of the most beta politicians ever.
Yeah, terrible, terrible.
Yeah. What Lovecraft movies do you recommend? Because most of the ones are usually just like low budget piece of shit ones, but I've seen some good ones like the
Real quick,
Color Out of Space.
can you turn your camera back on? Your voice is a little bit low, and before I was watching, I was kind of reading your lips as you were talking.
Oh my God. All right. Very
You're
good.
good. So, Lovecraft movies. Oh man, I don't know if this is going to be unpopular opinion with you or not, but I loved the Nicolas Cage Color Out of Space. I thought it was great. I thought it was great.
Yeah, it was. I have it on DVD. Um,
Some
yeah,
people
I
hated it.
what?
Some people hated it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're wrong though.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was a great movie. Yeah, yeah. I haven't read the original story. My brother had, so I had no idea. Like, it looked like they took liberties with it because, that's obviously not how Lovecraft writes his dialogue.
No, no, no. That's they took a lot of liberties with it. It was a big time film adaptation. He added a family in there that was kind of like when the original Color Out of Space, there was a family original Color Out of Space, but they were kind of like bumpkins, right? They weren't like from the city and then moving to the country trying to be farmers. And then they had a son that was corrupted and they started worshiping him. And like there's like some stuff in the Color Out of Space story that was very much different than the movie. But it was like I still liked it. I still thought it was great. Um, Other Lovecraftian movies. Let me think here. It's not a good one, but the sci-fi original movie Dagon, I actually like it. Um, it's not a good movie. So, folks, if you guys go out and watch it, and you're like, this piece of shit. Like, don't blame me. I told you it's a piece of shit, but it's one of the pieces of shit that you just like for some reason, right? Um,
You mean like The Room or?
the Room. I actually never saw The Room.
Oh, okay.
I've never seen The Room. Um, it's not a Lovecraft, but like obviously a lot of people point to this one. The Thing. The Thing is just probably the best horror movie out of that era. One that has a lot of Lovecraftian kind of themes in it. That a lot of people don't really like give it this association. The Alien movies, Alien 1 and 2. Um, Let me think. Obviously, In the Mouth of Madness gets a lot of Lovecraftian, obviously. Um, Let me think. It's tough. Then there's some I've watched just about every single Lovecraft or cosmic horror themed um short film that is available online. Like there's one I really loved called The Sound from Beneath. It was about this team of like Finnish scientists out on this ship, and there's a sound from underneath on the ocean floor, and it was making them all go nuts. Uh, that was a really good one. Some of the CGI was a little campy, but hey, I don't even care about that. I just want a cool movie. Um, Let me think what else. I've watched so many of them. Trying to think of some of my favorite. One of them was called like what was it? uh the something file. Is about this dude that found a cosmic horror in like a computer server. That was pretty cool because it had a lot of really 80s vibes to it. It had like the John Carpenter synth music and used a lot of the color palettes from that era of movies. That was a really cool one. um Let me think. There's not that many that I think are that great. A lot of people really like the ones that the Lovecraft Society put out. The Call of Cthulhu one. There's another one they did. I couldn't get into it. It's like the black and white silent film. I couldn't really get
Um,
into it. I don't know.
oh yeah, I remember that one. That was back in 2005.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's
Okay.
good. It's true to the book. I don't know. I like color. I like sound. That's part of what makes film so great.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that aesthetic might seems to have worked with for a lot of people, considering how old the actual Call of Cthulhu story is.
Yeah, I mean, it's very cool, and they did a very good job. This is just my preference. I mean, it's just like
Yeah.
I don't know, just me.
Did you like the Reanimator movie?
Reanimated movie. Which what are you talking about?
Reanimator. It was
Oh,
it has a
yeah, Herbert West. Yeah, the
yeah
Reanimator movie, the first one. I
yeah
love it. I love
yeah.
it.
Uh, did you watch the other two?
Did I watch what?
The other two that had like two sequels.
I saw the second one halfway through. Oh my god, I couldn't get through it. It
Yeah,
was
that was painful to watch.
not good. Not good.
I finished it, but yeah, I wouldn't personally recommend that one.
No, first one in my mind is the only one.
Yeah, it reminded me of the Psycho movies, with Robert Block Psycho.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what it reminded me of. Like the first one was a classic, it's all great, but then like they forced a sequel that nobody wanted, nobody asked for, got a different
yeah.
director, a different writer, and it was just a huge mess.
Yeah, Hollywood, they're just terrible at that. They think for they think in dollar bills. They don't think like artists.
Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, speaking of Psycho, are you a fan of Robert Block?
I have not done a deep dive into Robert Bloch. I do think that some of his stories are a little bit subversive. I don't really I don't really get into him that much.
Okay, yeah, because I enjoyed his writing style.
I when it comes to like kind of guys like Lovecraft adjacent, I really liked Donald Wandre. He's one he doesn't get a lot of credit, but I think that he's great. Let me think who else. From the, like the Lovecraft circle. Obviously, Clark Ashton Smith, gorgeous writer. Poetry. I'm a big fan of the pulp poetry too. Robert E. Howard and Lovecraft's poetry. I have like all of their poetry in books somewhere. You know what I mean? I just adore, especially Robert E. Howard. Robert E. Howard, Song of the Naked Land, Song of the Werewolf Folk. He's just got so many. Just he was just a dragon. You know what I mean? With
Mhm.
the stuff that he was coming out with. Um, Lovecraft, his poetry is beautiful too. I just those guys were just such geniuses. Clark Ashton Smith, his poetry is a little bit different than those guys. It's a little bit more formulaic and traditional, but it's he does like the ABBA format on his poetry a lot. It's almost every single poem is like that, except for like a few, like one out of every 20 is not in that format, but really great stuff. In my opinion, the Clark Ashton Smith fans out there probably hate me for this. I don't think that he was quite as good as Howard. So
I haven't read either of their works yet. I do know a little bit about their background. Clark Ashton Smith, not so much, but Unfortunately, I can't find any biographies on him. I know there's that documentary though.
Yeah, Clark Ashton Smith, his Zothique books are very, very good. It's different than Lovecraft. It's not quite Lovecraft. It's a little bit more fantastical. It's a little bit more outer spacey, but it is tremendous.
Hmm. 'Cause I do have a collection of some of the stories. The one, one of the first one, the first volume collected by Scott Connors. I think that's his name. The Clark Ashton Smith scholar.
I'm not familiar.
Okay. Because yeah, I've seen like a few Clark Ashton Smith collections. There's one by Robert and Price, the Clark Ashton cycle. There's the Dark Eidolon and other stories collected by S.C. Joshi, and then there's the one by Scott Connors, which I was told is actually working on a critical biography of Smith, but it's not clear when or whether he's going to finish that.
I'm always a little hesitant on biographies written by people today about people in that time because I just don't, I really feel that if you just read their stories and read their letters and like understand them, like go to the source material, you'll get a better understanding of these people from these like biography writers. I think a lot of times they're too poisoned with modern politics to do a good job of uh displaying that. But I actually just clicked on. I have a whole bunch of Robert E. Howard poems on my computer here. If you're interested, you could say no because whatever. But I could read one of my favorite Robert E. Howard poems for you if you'd like.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, so this one I love this one. This one is so I don't. This isn't my favorite one from him, but this is a very very good one. What was this from? This was from I can't remember what collection this was from. Don't matter. This is called "Song of the Mad Minstrel" by Robert E. Howard. He goes, I am the thorn in the foot. I am the blur in the sight. I am the worm at the root. I am the thief in the night. I am the rat in the wall, the leper that leers at the gate. I am the ghost in the hall, herald of horror and hate. I am the rust on the corn. I am the smut on the wheat. Laughing man's labor to scorn, weaving a web for his feet. I am canker and mildew and blight, danger and death and decay, the rot of the wind by night, the blast of the sun by day. I warp and wither with drought. I work in the swamp's foul yeast. I bring the black plague from the south and the leprosy in from the east. I rend from the hemlock boughs wine steeped in the petals of doom. Where the fat black serpents drowse, I gather the upas blooms. I have plumbed the northern ice for a spell like frozen lead in lost gray fields of rice. I have learned from Mongol dead. Where a bleak black mountain stands, I have looted grisly caves. I have digged in the desert sands to plunder terrible graves. Never the sun goes forth. Never the moon glows red, but out of the south or the north, I come with the slavering dead. I come with hideous spells, black chants, and ghastly tunes. I have looted the hidden hells and plundered the lost black moons. There was never a king or priest to cheer me by word or look. There was never a man or beast in the blood black ways I took. There were crimson gulfs unplumbed. There were black wings over a sea. There were pits where mad things drummed and foaming blasphemy. There were vast ungodly tombs where slimy monsters dreamed. There were clouds like blood drenched plumes where unborn demons screamed. There were ages dead to time and lands lost out of space. There were adders in the slime and a dim, unholy face. Oh, the heart in my breast turned stone, and the brain froze in my skull. But I won through, I alone, and poured my chalice full of horrors and dooms and spells, black buds and bitter roots. From the hells beneath the hells, I bring you my deathly fruits. The end.
Yeah, that I have no idea what to say, to be honest. It's like a really catchy poem.
Fucking dope, right?
Yeah.
Fire. Fucking dragon.
Yeah, my brother told me that he when he would write his stories, he'd be talking out loud. Like, can you imagine how he just spoke that when he was writing it?
Oh my god. Have you ever seen Whole Wide World?
Was that movie about Howard?
Yep. There's a scene in Whole Wide World where what's her name? Nova Lynn Price. She walks up to Bob Howard's house
Mhm.
and she comes to the door, she's about to knock, and she hears like this crazy yelling, right? So she goes
Yeah.
sneaks around back and hides beneath his window to hear what he's doing. And you hear him on the typewriter, and he's like, and Conan reached around her breast and tore off her skirt. This muscle bound barbarian. And he's just like shouting like a maniac while he's typing this shit. And she's like, oh my God. But it turned her on a little bit. It got a little, got her a little moist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because for me, I'm a slow writer, so like I mostly just like slowly whisper to myself when I'm alone, just to make sure the dialogue really sounds like it's normal speaking. Yeah, I could just
Yeah.
never like shout while I'm writing like that.
Oh yeah. I probably could. I mean,
Uh,
honestly, I'm such a big mouth. I do it in my head. Like I take that same position, right? Robert E. Howard, he understood something that was Robert E. Howard and both Lovecraft too were just absolutely in love with the ancient world, right? The not just the architecture and the literature and the stuff that came out of the ancient world, but they're also in love with the theology and the Weltanschauung, the worldview of the ancient people. And they very much thought that the ancient world was the apex of civilization and that we now suck. And I'll be honest with you, I agree with them, but that's another topic. So what Howard was tapping into, he believed that all prose should be written as spoken word, and he gets this because ancient prayers, like not Christian prayers, but like hymns, like Orphic hymns in Greece, or the Norse call it Galdr, which is like sung prayers, and reading and poetry, and all of this stuff was written in meter. The holy text, the sacred ancient poetry, the stories of the gods and the heroes. This was written in meters. It was poetic. It was meant to be spoken. It wasn't meant to just and I'm not trying to knock on any like Christians out there or whatever, but like in Protestant, they have the sola scriptura stuff where they sit and they quietly read the Bible and like all this kind of, and that's not like what the ancient Europeans did. The ancient Europeans spoke it loudly and proudly and sung it, and it was this big display. The Romans had this art of oration where they would adopt this oration voice. They would use a different voice from when their normal speaking voice when they would do orations. It was an art form is to give orations. So Howard was tapping into this very ancient tradition of very ancient spiritual tradition of spoken word and song and all of these stuff in the meter. In fact, in the Norse, if you read the Poetic Edda, it's in a meter that's called Lodahatter meter. They have this whole system of alliteration that they used for their sacred poetry. It's completely formalized and everything, right? It's a part of a system called Galdralag, which means the Galder law, the law of prayer. So it's like they had all of these systems. Howard knew this. Howard knew that there was cadence and rhythm to written word because it wasn't meant because most people in ancient times didn't know how to read, right?
yeah.
Reading was like that was for rich people and like scholars and stuff. Most people didn't have, and honestly, most people didn't have a use for reading. Plato actually argued that reading was going to make people dumber. Like the same argument that we make about every new technology comes out. Oh, it's going to make people dumber. Smartphones going to make people dumber. TV is going to make people dumber. He made that argument about the technology of reading.
That was
But
Socrates, not Plato.
that's right. You're right. You're right. Socrates made it. But who knows who Socrates was, right? It could have just been Plato making it up and applying it to Socrates, right?
Yeah, it could have been because I don't know if there is there any proof that Socrates existed because he never wrote anything. 'Cause
Uh,
I know some people think he's a fictional character.
I think he was a real guy.
Yeah, I think so too. I just don't know if what records we have.
We don't know what he actually said and what is Plato's thing. Which Plato, I'm actually not a some of Plato, some of the stuff Plato like Platonic philosophy is I think good. I think some of it is ridiculous and like took all of civilization down a path that like led to where we are now. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people's memories, they think that like all of the world started after World War II, and that's like the kind of extent of their worldview and their knowledge of life.
Mm.
But a lot of people don't realize that Plato happened very, very late in ancient Greece times, and humanity had civilization and had culture and had everything. Humanity was doing its thing for thousands of years before Plato was even born. You know what I mean? It's just whatever. But that's what Robert E. Howard was tapping into, and it was really really cool. He was a guy. He believed that his writing was dreams. They were ancestral memories, which is another pretty unique thing that he came up with. This idea that he had memories of these past lives, because this is something that ancient Europeans believed very deeply in. This idea of having what they called a folk soul or folk memory, ancestral memory, that you shared your memories and your ideas and everything with your ancestors because you were a reincarnation of your ancestors. And it's interesting because he was a very, very learned guy. So he could have stumbled upon it. But a lot of these ideas, he had to have been reading guys like Gronbeck. Wait, was Gronbeck even alive when did Gronbeck write Culture of the Teutons? And guys like Victor Rydberg. Let me look up Gronbeck real quick.
I never even heard of him.
This
Sorry.
is no, you're good. You're good. Culture of the Teutons. When did that come out? Let me see real quick. I'm gonna let me see. Is there like a freaking Wikipedia that just tells me when it came out? Review. Published in 1931. So yeah, yeah, so Robert E. Howard might have been familiar with the writings of Wilhelm Gronbeck and Victor Rydberg and a lot of these really really profound um, writers that were talking about Germanic and ancient European theology. So he could have known about this stuff. But I like to think that he came up with this organically, because there's no evidence to show that he knew about these. And for him, like Gronbeck wrote his book talking about the folk soul and culture of the Teutons in 1931. Robert E. Howard was dead in what 1936 or something like that. So he would have had 5 years to get this book that was written in Germany, get it translated. I don't even know if it was in English by that time. So it's very, very likely that Robert E. Howard just came to these conclusions that were very solidly part of European worldview for thousands and thousands of years. And he just kind of came up with it in rural Protestant Texas. You know what I mean? So he was like tapped into something really, he was a special guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Uh, yeah, so I've also gotten interested in Clark Ashton Smith, but the thing is, I don't know much about him. I remember watching Arkham Reporter's short little video on him, but yeah, that was a while ago. I don't even remember much about him. Well, I forgot what he did when he was young. Did he like he learned different languages, right?
Yeah, I also believe he was in the military. I
Yeah.
think I know. I'm not a big expert on Clark Ashton Smith. I actually have a friend that's like a crazy Clark Ashton Smith guy. But as far as my knowledge, I could be completely wrong about all this. So don't take my word for it.
All
Go,
right.
everybody, look it up themselves. I believe that he did live in poverty. He took care of a mother that was very sick. He was a very devoutly Catholic guy. I do know that, which
Oh,
is
really?
kind of in very different than Lovecraft, which is interesting because they were so fond of one another.
Mm.
Um, which I've read a lot of the Lovecraft letters between him and Clark Ashton Smith and Robert E. Howard and stuff like that. And half the time they just argue. Half their letters are just them debating one another. You know what I mean? They're just like arguing over politics, or arguing over religion, or arguing over this or that, blah blah blah. So it was like they were kind of frenemies. You know what I mean? They were very fond of one another and good friends, but they argued a lot. You know what I mean?
I mean, it seems like a healthy relationship. You can
Mm,
just politely debate your friends about your many differences, but still keep your friendship.
yeah.
Because like I've been blocked over just any political views, and so have some of my conservative friends.
You said by your conservative friends?
So have some of my conservative friends.
Oh.
Yeah, but like I have debated my conservative friends on some things. I never gotten blocked by them.
Yeah. It's we are living in an age where there are people that are cowards, right? The reason that they are blocking you isn't really because they really believe that stuff. It's because they fear social rejection, right? They 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 fear social consequences or damages to their social credit. So that's why they're doing it. They don't actually, most people don't actually believe or really like anything. Everything for the most part is social signaling, right?
Yeah.
Most people are not smart enough to come up with, and this sounds mean, but it's true. Most people are not smart enough to think rationally. Mankind for, and this is kind of like, this was like a big um thing that I had to come to grips with. Actually, probably you said you're 21. Probably in
Yeah.
my early 20s, I had to come to grips with this idea that most people are irrational beings. That rationalism is not like the standard mode of people's the way people's minds work. People are emotional creatures. They're reactionary creatures. They're group oriented creatures. Things like things that I used to believe very deeply in, like individualism and free thought, like all these kinds of things. These things are like fantasies that were cooked up by Enlightenment philosophy. The guys like John Locke and Thomas Hobbes and stuff like these were very revolutionary ideas. This is where like wokeness comes from. Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, these guys were kind of like the first woke people. They really introduced, and they were informed by Protestantism. They introduced these ideas of individualism. Man is an individual creature. They introduced this idea of inalienable rights. These are all kind of like revolutionary liberal ideas. Capitalism, believe it or not, has always been a revolutionary kind of leftist position, and because capitalism and mercantilism are woven in with Enlightenment philosophy and individualism and stuff like that. So these have always been revolutionary. If you take a conservative of today and took him back, 250 years, they would think that he's a revolutionary. They would consider him. He would have more in common with like Robes. What's his name? Robespierre than he would like an actual conservative of that time. This is why Lovecraft kind of people don't really understand his politics, because his politics, even for the 1930s, were like old, right? He grew up reading the philosophies of guys that preceded him 200-300 years, centuries before him. So, and he didn't have this like immersion into uh what very early modern society, right? Because when he was alive was when industrialization first started happening. This is where industrial society starts to get created. This is where the technosphere first starts to bloom and blossom. So he was like kind of an alien in his own place, right? So this is why a lot of people look at his politics and like, oh, he was a socialist. Oh no, he was a fascist. Or oh no, he was a this or he was a that or blah blah blah. He looked at politics of that era, which is the mode that we still look at politics from like a completely different angle, from a very old angle. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Um,
I know I just threw a lot at you right now. Sorry.
that's all right. I've never been that much of a social person. So yeah, I kind of just takes me a minute to think before what should I say next. Um, Uh, you mind if we end it right here? Actually, it's about to die again.
Yeah, it's all good.
I think we've talked long enough.
Yeah, it's
If you
all
don't
good.
mind.
It's all good. Sorry for motor mouthing all the time
Uh,
and throwing all this crazy stuff at you.
that's fine. It's better when somebody else is talking because I might not have so much to say. But yeah, it's been really interesting. I really appreciate you talking with me.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to buying the rest of these archives.
Yeah. And
What,
also, with the political stuff, not everybody in the Bizarchives has the same. Bizarchives is not about politics. We got
yeah,
guys that are like all over the spectrum in politics. We don't care about that. We're just here to write good stories and entertain people and put out books that are affordable that Joe Schmo can pick up and read, or Joe Schmo up to like guys that are really smart. You know what I mean? That can read it on lunch breaks. Read it. We designed our books. Yeah, we were doing it in the old pulps, but we thought nowadays was a perfect time to bring pulp back because now our attention spans are very much molded by digital media, whether we like it or not. Everybody grew up with a TV in their house. Everybody grew up watching 30-second commercials, 45-second commercials. Everybody grew up playing video games. Everybody grew up with these things as a mainstay. Reading is not native to people anymore. People are native to digital media now. So we went back to the short story because it is something that is more digestible and bite sized. And also, people work a lot of hours now. It's not much different than the times that the pulp guys that we're talking about were around. This is the time of the Great Depression. Guys had to work or you starved. There were bread lines, there were soup lines. This was a time where people went out and worked. This is before there was like workers' rights laws. You know what I mean? So there was there was no child labor laws back then. So you had kids working these ridiculous hours in these factories. It was a tough time to be alive, right? So nowadays we're seeing something sort of similar. Gas prices are going through the roof. People either don't have any work at all or they lose their jobs because of whatever the international people are doing, shutting everything down or whatever. I don't even want to get into that. But because of that, people either work these ridiculous hours or they're financially in trouble. So we wanted to put something out there that was like healing and fun and bite sized and digestible and like also a low entry level for guys that want to just get into it and just see their names in print. I mean, I've been writing for so long and sending stories in, and just the amount of money that they offer you is just pathetic. Number one, but it wasn't even about the money at all. I figured like it wasn't even about the money. I just wanted to see my name in print. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And there's so much crap out there. I just figured my stories are good enough, are as good as that. You know what I mean? Well, how come nobody's giving me a chance? So I was like, I'll make my own. So I did. And now there's guys that are good enough to be in publishing that have had their foot up with Bizarchives, can now have that under their belt and say, yeah, well, I've been published in these 3 books already. So you guys got to at least give me a look, right? So that's
yeah,
kind of our goal. We wanted to lift up the people, lift up the readers. We also wanted to lift up the writers too, and give guys that nobody looks at a chance to get published and see their name in print. And let me tell you, as editor in chief, everything aside, the culture war aside, everything aside, my absolute favorite part of doing this is presenting the book to somebody who's seeing their name in print for the first time. I feel like fucking Santa Claus. It is a very special thing. Your eyes light up because we don't really have rites of passage or like anything like that anymore. After you turn 21 or whatever, life is just you work, you pay taxes until you die. And there's not really any milestones outside of having kids and getting married. And those things are wonderful. I've done those things. They're beautiful. They're part of growing up. But there's also other things that we used to do and we should have. And to give somebody another thing like that is just a really special experience. And I just love doing it. I'm very, very blessed.
Yeah. Yeah, I really appreciate what you're doing here.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
if you accept my story, it will be really exciting to see it on paper. I always prefer seeing on paper than on online magazines or anything like that.
It's tangible, it's concrete, it's a real thing that you hold in your hands. It has foreverness.
Yeah, I really love that. Um,
Mm.
I have published an op-ed, which is online so far. That's the only thing I got so far, and just to see like my actual fiction getting published and hearing and just seeing people buying this magazine, knowing there's just going to be people who are going to see my story. It's like a really exciting idea.
Yeah. So my advice to guys out there that are writing and trying to get in, firstly, be patient. I mean, Bizarchives is not the only. You have so many other great publishers out there. Shout out Kursova. Shout out DMR Books. Shout out Story Hack. I haven't read Story Hack yet, but they're in the pulp gang, so I'm gonna give them a shout. Shout out my boys Aegeon, Mr. Brendan Hurd, and Aegeon. There's so many great publishers out there for guys that are writing and trying to get into one of these publications. You got to be patient because there's a lot of people fighting for it, and because of that, you got to get hungry. If you send a story in and you don't hear anything back, send another story in. Don't just like sit on one story. Write. We have a saying: write with pulp speed. These guys, Robert E. Howard, in the years from when he started writing until he croaked in 36 was like what 8-9 years or something like that. Wrote like hundreds and hundreds of poems, tons and tons and tons of stories. This guy could fill a library with everything that he wrote in 6 years. There's no reason we can't do that and he did it on a goddamn typewriter. We could do it on a fucking computer. Just get down, write. Not every story is going to be a banger. Don't be afraid to write a piece of shit. Everybody writes a piece of shit once in a while. Get out your pieces of shit and get out your good stories and get better and grind. Who was it? One of the Beatles. I don't like the Beatles, but one of the Beatles said something really smart. Said an hour a day makes an expert. Grind, work. If you want it, you can get it, but you got to work for it. You got to practice.
Yeah. All right.
Write more stories. That's it.
I will try. I'll try to get another. I'll try to finish one by the end of the month. I'm working on one about the Yule Cat.
By the end of the month, what's the date? 22nd, dude. I could write 4 stories in like the next 2 weeks.
I should try that. I should try just like
Try to write a
increasing
story
it.
in one day.
I got work tomorrow, so I'll try to do that before I go to work.
Yep, it's good practice.
Yeah, I appreciate everything, man. I really, like I said, I look forward to getting the rest of the archives. Are then within the call right now?
All right, bub. Appreciate you. Good talk.
Yeah, thank you for everything, man.